So if you've been watching the RX7 rebuild, I know a lot of people have been asking how much has it costed to build this thing, and we have gone above and beyond on this FD by doing a complete restoration on it at this point. I'm talking, this car was a bare shell, similar to how the Subaru is right above me. So I sat down, dug through all my emails, found all of the receipts for everything that we've purchased for this car, and it is surprisingly not as much as I thought it was going to be. Now, there are some things that are on the car that came with it when I bought it. I bought this as a blown up 1993 RX7 that had sat for 10 years. It came with things like the Stop Tech front brakes, came with a blown up 13B, and a miscellaneous handful of other random suspension things here and there. But for the most part, we have replaced almost everything needed on this vehicle. Seals, engine stuff, everything you could think of. So I've broken this apart into multiple categories. So the final cost, like I said, it's actually not, I mean, it's still a lot of money, don't get me wrong. And this has been over the course of 1.5 years of buying all this stuff for this car. Just over the past couple of months is when we really started dialing in on it to really get this thing to what it is now. So let's start things off. I bought the car for a base price of $21,500. We flew down to California to go get this thing and trailered it back up to Washington. In my opinion, a little bit high for a blown up RX7, but then again, it is a left-hand drive model. It's touring, it's clean title with low miles, so you're gonna pay what you're gonna pay. The shells for left-hand drive ones in decent shape are pretty expensive now, so no, can't complain too much there. So $21,500. So now let's jump over to the engine category, and this is where we spent the most money. I spent more money building this engine setup than what I paid for the car. So we will just start going down my list. This is not in any particular order, but you guys will see as we're going through here. So I bought this as a blown up 13B. It had bad water jacket seals and it had let coolant into one of the rotor housings. Thankfully, no damage or anything like that, which was good for us. We still did have to replace 2 irons. One of them in the very beginning when I was learning how to port this engine, I blew through the rear irons intake porting into the coolant jacket, and the center iron when we just rebuilt it this last time because we found damage on that one. So to go off, we have a single turbo kit on here. This is from Turblown. It is their external wastegate kit. We have a Borg Warner SXE6366 on here. I want to say it's physically a huge turbo. That single turbo kit came with the exhaust manifold, the turbo, the downpipe, the wastegates, and I want to say that was it. And for that turbo kit, it was about $4,280, which is not cheap. And I'm not going to go through every single little cost of the engine bay, just kind of the bigger stuff. For the intake manifolds, we actually have an Xsessive lower intake manifold with the Turblown upper intake manifold. For that upper intake manifold, it came out at $886, and for the lower, it came in at $1,120 for that. So about $2,000 in manifolds right there alone. Intercooler setup and radiator, we have a Greddy V mount kit on here with some custom piping. We are using their standard piping on the cold side with a welded flange on here for our tiled blow-off valve. On the other side, it's all custom piping for that Greddy V mount kit. I saw prices all over the place. I'm gonna use the lower price of $3,000 on this because that's kind of, if I can buy it for that. Fuel system, we've got 2 sets of injectors in here. We have 4 ID 2600s as our secondaries and 2 ID 1700s as our primaries in here. For the 2600s, you're looking at about $1,500. For the 1700s, about $604. Now, I didn't even get the alternator in there. I forgot about that one, the DC power. That's like $600 right there. I forgot to even include that in the price. And like I said, there's gonna be some things in this list that I just totally didn't even think about. So for the physical engine itself, I rebuilt this engine 3 times. So I put in kind of all of the combined engine rebuild costs. This was my first time going through and building a rotary engine. The first time was a big learning experience. The second time was an even bigger learning experience. And the third time, I kind of got it figured out, and I can reputably say I can build my own 13Bs at this point, given we'll see how long this one lasts. But I have full faith in this engine that it will not have any issues. So for a basic engine rebuild kit, you're looking at about $1,000. I got mine from Atkins. You can source them from whoever you want. This is a half bridge engine, so I did have to buy the half bridge template. That was like $72. For more of the fuel system, like I said, these are not in any particular order. I just kind of went through my email and pulled all of these. We have a Radium fuel hanger assembly with 3 wall bureau 450s. One of them is a lift, 2 of them are feed pumps. We do have room for a third one in there if we wanted to, but we're not gonna be using that. With their inline filter that is under the car, you're looking at $1,324 for that fuel pump assembly there. More stuff for the inside of the engine, OEM Mazda corner seals, E&J Apex Seals, coolant seals, more coolant seals, because I do that a couple times, and just going through, so it's just more miscellaneous engine costs there. Exhaust manifold gaskets are expensive for this thing, 124 bucks, that's wild. Another big ticket item is going to be the Haltech Elite 2500 with the Rywire engine harness and the Haltech wideband 1 controller. For the engine harness alone, you're looking at $1,437. That's for the Elite 2500, you're looking at another $1,959 on that guy. We did delete the AST with the Chase Bay's AST delete. That comes in about 250 bucks there. Some of the other big ticket items were the dual oil cooler setup. I didn't want to spend $1,400 on a dual oil cooler kit, so I kind of made my own and pieced it together. And we were able to do that for about $750, and that's using 2 set RAB 25 row oil coolers, which they seem to be working phenomenal in the car. I've replaced the oil pan on this a couple times. Every time I have to buy an oil pan, it's like 250 bucks. I think I swapped it out twice. Just with how many times I took this engine apart and rebuilt it to get it to this stage now. The oil pans are just so flimsy on the gaskets, and to be able to get them sealed properly, it was just more confident, inspiring to just replace the oil pan again with a new one. So I've spent about $500 in oil pans there, but hey, it doesn't leak. There's not a single leak coming out of this rotor. We have the Turblown stud kit for the engine. It is just factory sizing. I want to say they're factory sizing. They might be a hair bigger. I don't remember off the top of my head, but I do have that in there as well. Those coming in, I want to say about $400. Now, if you, in the past couple videos, you guys may have saw we just had to take off the front cover, take off the oil pan again, and fix a dropped front shim. We did replace that with an E&J stationary gear support. That was about $250 and another $400 in seals, gaskets, oil pan to get all of that sorted. But that kind of takes care of a lot of the bigger stuff that's going on in this engine bay. There are some things I was able to reuse from the original setup. There's some things that I DIY'd and made, and there are some costs that I'm not going to go over every single detail. Otherwise this video would be who knows how long. But for the basic, I don't want to call it basic because this is like top of the line engine stuff for this car. For this 2 rotor setup, came in at $27,242.87. That is for rebuilding the engine 2.5 times, the turbo kit, the Haltech, the manifolds, the blow-off valve, the wastegates, the V-mount, all of that, which is shocking. A lot of people like the rotary stuff, and I like the rotary stuff, but you got to keep in mind that it's just such an expensive engine to do things for. The oil control rings alone, when I built this engine, I replaced all of the oil control rings. I've replaced every seal in that engine, but the oil control rings alone were $700 for a set of 4 for the rotors. That is insane and absurd, and I know you don't have to replace them every single time, but with this thing sitting for 10 years, it just felt like the right thing to do, just to refresh everything while we were in there. So $27,242 on just the engine stuff. Drivetrain, suspension, and brakes, I just kind of lumped all of those together just because it felt like it felt right. Felt like they needed to go together. So for coilovers, I'm just gonna go down the list. Once again, no particular order. Coilovers, we have a set of BCBR coilovers. I got those for 1,200 bucks. For street coilovers, they are totally fine. I did replace pretty much all of the suspension components, if not the component itself, the bushings that went into it. So this does have new front LCAs. I got those for $600, which though are front lower control arms, which those are really difficult to come by actually. The OEM Mazda ones are very expensive. These are not OEM. But for some reason, I want to say it was the right side you couldn't, or is the left side. One of the sides you cannot get, and you can only get one of the sides, which is quite annoying. So I found a set locally, brand new in bag for like 600 bucks, and we got those. For the clutch setup, we do have an ACT HDSS in here with their Streetlight flywheel and their counterweight. I did have the engine balanced with that counterweight, so it is all good to go there. For that flywheel and counterweight, that's $578. For that clutch, $774. So that kit alone combined, you're looking at like 1,300 bucks for a flywheel, a counterweight, and a clutch, which, you know, it'll work. I'm not shooting for the moon on this car. I really want to keep it around that 450, 500 point, probably day to day. I have paid the tuner on this. I'm just waiting to get the tune file from him so we can start tuning, so hopefully that comes through soon. Same with the hood, that is actually out for delivery either today or tomorrow. We did do the Chase Bay's brake booster delete and their what is that? Master cylinder for the clutch. So both of those are on here. The brake booster delete with the lines was $578.98. The brake lines from Chase Bays were $129, and those are the ones that go from the wheel well to the actual caliper themselves. We did also replace the slave cylinder, the throw-up bearing, and the clutch fork, all with new from Mazda. That came in at about $438 there, which surprisingly isn't too bad. The last two big ticket items we have for the drivetrain suspension category is going to be the front upper control arms, which those came in at about $400, and then the PBM rear upper control arms, those came in at about $650. I did buy a set of PBM front lowers that I did not include in this because we did not end up using them, but those were fairly pricey also. I'm just not going to include them because we didn't use them. No point in including something we didn't use. In the drivetrain suspension braking category, that came in at $7,357. I am excluding the cost of the Stock Tech front big brake kit on here. I want to say that's another $4,000 that would be put in that category, but that did come with the car when we got it, so I didn't feel it was just putting that cost included in this. But if you wanted to, add another $4,000 in there for that. Next up, we have the exterior category. Now this is a 1993 model, so this bumper obviously is not original to it. Same with the taillights. The bumper is a 99 spec front bumper, 99 spec rear taillights, and then the rest, and we have a legit Mazda Speed wing. I did not include the price of the Mazda Speed wing on there. That's another like $3 grand, but that did come with the car as well. I thought that was a cool piece, so obviously we're gonna keep it with the car. So to go down the list on this, for this 99 spec front bumper, I bought this brand new with the core support. These are quite expensive. For this 99 spec front bumper shipped, it came in at $2,263.75. In my opinion, it's the more iconic RX7 bumper, so I feel like it makes the car, it looks better. Like if we're being straight up, it looks better 100% than the non-99 spec, pre-99. The hood, which you guys haven't seen yet because I don't even have it yet, but it has been purchased already. We have a VIS hood coming. It is an OE looking hood with a large vent in the back of it to allow hot air to get out. Came in at $1,200. We do have a side-on carbon fiber rear hatch. That was another $1,280, but I didn't want the metal hatch mainly because it had all the holes for the wiper blades and I didn't want to weld them up, and it was quite heavy if we're being honest. So the carbon hatch really frees up a lot of room back. It doesn't free up a lot of room, frees up a lot of weight and fit surprisingly well. So we did paint match that to the car. We have the carbon fender vents and the Ganador style mirrors. No, they are not legit Ganadors. I am not a baller like that. I am not spending Ganador money on those mirrors. Those mirrors were still quite spendy though. They were $665. The carbon side skirts that are on the car came in at $350. The front combination lamps for the 99 spec bumper were another $100. Then there's just miscellaneous stuff through here. The rear diffuser that I put on the car is another $450. So exterior wise, we're looking at $11,235.03. Still quite spendy to make it look the way that it looks, but I think it looks pretty good. We have the cheapest category out of all of them, and that is the interior, mainly because I actually didn't have to replace too much on it. So mine came with the all black interior, thankfully, which I know that's a very sought after interior for a lot of RX7 owners because you get a lot of them that are like that natural tan color and people want the black. Thankfully, mine came with the all black, so we didn't have to track any of that down, source it, or find any of it. But there were still some things that we needed to get for the interior that we still did replace, trim and panel wise, just because some of them were old. Now the biggest cost I think for the interior was actually that gauge cluster hood. While we now have a Haltech IC7 display in there, I still needed the hood, and my dummy self, when I took it apart the first time, I didn't realize that you pull out and not up on that hood, and I of course shattered it, as most of the old 90 cars do. They break interior panels. So that was about $700 to replace that piece. I did get one brand new for left-hand drive. It's just the left-hand drive stuff is so much more difficult to find than the right-hand drive stuff. Mainly because they didn't make them for as many years. So it became a little difficult trying to track down and source some of these parts, but we were able to get them, just obviously at a cost. Like I said, there isn't really too much done on the interior that we did. There was the carbon kick panels that I just put in, which I did that off camera, so I will put in like some nice little B-roll of that stuff right now. I wanted to have an updated head unit in this car, Android Auto, Apple CarPlay. It's just a nice feature to have. So we did do a double din in this thing. We got rid of the really old Alpine single din head unit that was in here. I did a couple things like the battery relocation to the hatch, the JP3 rear speaker brackets, added rear speakers to it because mine never came with them because it did come with the Bose sound system, which I have taken out since. The JP3 premix storage bottles and the rear bins and things like that. So Not too much going on in the interior. Like I said, the interior was pretty already well taken care of. Thankfully, the car did sit in a garage for 10 years. Interior wise, we're looking at $4,806 with probably the biggest two costs being in that are the Haltech display, which is about $1,100, and the gauge cluster hood and bezel for it. Wow, that's like $2,000 right there in just interior stuff for that. That's like half the cost was just that. Now for restoration costs, I didn't quite know how I wanted to break this up. So for restoration costs, it's gonna be things like OEM seals, paints, primers, undercoatings, glass, stuff like that. Stuff just to get the car back to where it would have been originally, not modification wise. That's why like the 99 spec front bumper, while it is an OEM part, it wasn't technically a restoration cost, it was more of a modification, so it kind of felt more fitting to put it in that category. So if it didn't come on the car originally, it's not the restoration cost. But some of the bigger things in the restoration costs, front windshield. A little more difficult to find than I thought, but I did get one with gray tinting on it, which I didn't even know that was an option. Apparently it's a really cool, rarer option than the blue tinting. The windshield was about $600 there. And then there's a lot of seals for this car to reseal everything. Every body seal on this thing has been replaced at this point. The windshield trim, the sunroof seal, all 4 of the door seals on each side, the hatch seal, etc., etc. Those add up quick. I'm not gonna go over every single cost of what those seals are, but I will tell you each individual seal can range from $180 up to about $200 to $300 per seal. You've got 4 per door, so that's 8 there. 1 for the sunroof, 1 for the hatch, the 1 for the hatch seal, the windshield one as well. So there's a lot of different seals that go into this thing. And in seals alone, I want to say we spent close to $3,000 to $4,000 on the restoration cost in just factory seals to get the body sealed up again and be watertight, because that is one thing that I wanted to ensure is if we're going to be taking this car to where it is now from an old, used, nasty RX7 to one that's actually like nice, you want to get into it, you want to drive it in a little bit more modern feeling, replacing those seals wasn't something that was negotiable. The wiper cowl up here was another expensive piece out of the restoration category that came in at like $600 for that. I stupidly threw mine away. The biggest thing I've learned from doing these restorations is if you have a car that is running and driving, do not throw anything away on your teardown. If it has any potential of being reused, hold on to it, because you don't know if you're going to need it. You don't know if that part's been discontinued. You don't know how expensive that part might be to replace if you do replace it, because that is one huge mistake I made on this RX7, and it could have saved us some money, is when we tore it apart, I threw away everything. If it had a little nick in it, a little scratch in it, if it had a broken fin in it, anything like that, immediately got thrown away because I wanted it to be perfect like this. But that also comes at a cost, because a lot of that stuff, and for things like this is one of the more expensive cars that I have built and put together compared to like the Subarus or anything like that, is the left-hand drive. And I specify the left-hand drive over the right-hand drive RX7 stuff because the left-hand drive stuff is significantly more expensive when you try to track some of it down. But hold on to that stuff. Do not toss it, do not scrap it, do not throw it. Hold on to it until the car is put back together, because you never know when you're gonna need it again. The powder coat work for a lot of the resto stuff, we spent around $2,500 powder coating, Cerakoting, and refinishing as many of the old parts as we could, as well as the new parts. Throttle body was Cerakoted, it was actually bead blasted, then Cerakoted. Powder coated everything that we wanted to make it all kind of feel cohesive, make old parts look new again. The dash bar, everything under the bottom side of the car. About $2,500 of powder coating there. And paints, primers, clear coats, paint guns, paint booths, all of the disposables for painting the car, that came in at about $2,500 there. Thankfully, we did have the support from our guys over at Eastwood for helping supply the paint for this thing, so huge shout out to them. And if you're looking to paint your car as well, go check them out. I'll put a discount code down below in the description for you guys. But the total resto cost, and you guys have seen, if you watched the series on this, we replaced almost everything in here at this point. So in restoration costs for everything, like I said, seals, paints, primers, anything just to get the car OEM-ish again, came in at $11,721.23, putting our final cost with the price of the car included to $82,334.45 to build what you are looking at here. And that is excluding about $7,000 for the StopTech big brake kit and the Mazda Speed Wing, because those did come with the car. Granted, they are some spendy parts. Like I said, that wing alone is about $3,000 from what I can find on eBay, I could be wrong, but from what I've seen, for authentic Mazda Speed wings, you're looking at about $3,000. For the StopTech big brake kits, you're looking at another like $4,000. So I'm excluding those costs just because they did come with this car, but right around $82,000, $83,000 is roughly what we've spent on this thing to get it to where it is now. I've already paid the tuner, I've already bought the hood, I've already bought a new windshield wiper motor, which screw those things, being $600 for a windshield wiper motor is absolutely absurd, but obviously with living in Washington State, I kind of need windshield wipers. But I feel like it's worth it. I feel like if I were to sell the RX7, I could get the money back out of it with the condition it's in, with how much has been done to it, with how it's literally a rust-free car. It's got clean title, 80K miles, so I don't feel like it's a sunk cost or a lost cost. I feel like with the FD, this is a car that will appreciate in value, and I'm glad that I took the time to go through and do all of this to make it the car that it is now. But I hope that kind of answers your guys' questions for what would it take to replicate this or build something similar. And like I said, the biggest cost mainly put into the engine, the ECU, that type of stuff. You do not have to go balls to the wall like we did with this. Like this car, from what I've been talking to from a couple rotary guys, do 700 wheel if it wants to. A 600 wheel range, let it live a long and happy life and enjoy it there. But it'll make a lot of power, and that's still, the transmission won't hold up to that big power for a long time. So that is like, there's always gonna be stuff future-wise, so I'm gonna keep the car turned down, obviously, so I can enjoy it. But $82,000, I thought I'd spent more on this thing over time. And I'll have the entire build sheet for this car down below in the video description for you guys if you do want to check it out, if you're curious on any of the parts or anything like that in it. You guys can find the info there. But what do you guys think? Would you say that it's worth it? $82,000 for a fully restored 600 wheel-ish capable horsepower RX-7? I think I don't know. You can buy a lot of cars with $80,000, but you can't buy a 1993 RX-7 that's been fully restored for $80,000. That's for damn sure. Maybe you can. I don't know. I'm bringing a trailer. I haven't seen any that would be like comparable to this. I've seen like low mileage OE ones, but I haven't seen like full resto ones like this. But aside from the fact, I hope that answers your guys' questions as we wrap up the RX-7 build. Like I said, the hood is going to be delivered today or tomorrow. The windshield wiper motor will be showing up from Japan, and outside of that, there's literally nothing else that I need to do to this car outside of bleeding the brakes one more time, aligning it, and tune it. That is all I've got for you guys on this one. I just wanted to get this video kind of knocked out because it's in my queue, and I wanted to take a day break from grinding the bottom of the Subaru so we can get to primering that. I just need a break from it. That stuff takes forever. But with that, that's all I got for you guys on this one. So if you like the video, you know what to do. Go ahead, hit that like button, turn it black, blue, green, yellow, purple, silver, cyan, and whatever color it turns for you. And if you're not already subscribed to the channel and you want to be able to put it in one of these corners, no idea which one quite yet, but with that, I will catch you guys in the next one. So peace out, homies. Woo!